Back in the middle of 2017, before /x/ turned into a schizo/American politics board, and Anon, who we will refer to as Binder Anon, made a series of posts where he dumped a massive amount of Greentexts stories, which he had apparently made physical paper copies of and put into binders. He made about 10 threads, all of which are archived on 4plebs, and over the course of the series we will be posting some of the most interesting Greentexts, in chronological order. This content is not meant to replace the other spooky mysteries, analyses, and occult history. It is simply some classic /x/Greentext readings, which we all enjoy. So, without further ado, enjoy the Greentexts.
My step-aunt was killed at Yellowstone last year. Hiking around Yellowstone with a bunch of family. Step-aunt and her kids, dad, and me and my brothers. We're following a guide that will take us around some really cool hot springs. It was all really beautiful and awesome. We had a super good time, so we were all in really good moods. My step-aunt is like, hey, have you guys heard about hot potting? She tells us it's where you go and find a hot spring and bathe in it because it's really good for you. Automatically I think this is a really bad idea, but I don't say anything because I didn't want to be the killjoy. She gets everyone hyped up and we all start looking around the trail for any small pools. I tell my younger brother that I think this is a really bad idea and he says me too. We decide we need to tell someone. Suddenly we all hear my step-aunt start screaming and we all know it's bad. I've never heard a scream like that. We find her standing waist deep in this pool. The water is red. At first I think it's because of the minerals, but when I get closer I can see it's because she's being boiled alive. God, I really don't like thinking about this, but she was literally being cooked. Her skin was turning white and flaking off into the water and she was bleeding super heavily. She was wearing cargo shorts. The water was so hot it made the metal snap, basically fuse with her skin. She tried to take her shorts off, but a bunch of the skin on her waist came with it. There was literally nothing we could do. We couldn't even get close to her. We tried making a rope out of clothes to throw to her, but she couldn't move. My older brother ran to go get help so he didn't have to watch her die. I kind of hate him for that. I will never fucking forget her looking me in the eye, like she couldn't understand why any of it was happening. Eventually she started swaying and then she fell. By then she wasn't even screaming anymore.
Still pulling from my disturbing binder. Worst thing I've ever seen? Welder. Been on the job for about 10 years. I've seen a lot of shit. People are really fucking dumb when it comes to welding, is basically what I've learned. Watched a guy literally fry his eyeballs because he forgot his face shield and didn't want to get in trouble. Worst was a new guy I'll call Dave. Dave is a really nice guy but is fucking dumb as shit. He has to be told every single day to follow even the most basic safety precautions. Me and everyone else is just counting the minutes until Dave fucks up so bad he either kills himself or everyone else. Working with Dave on a prefab project. We've been working for a couple hours, me holding Dave's hand the whole time. I have to take a break, tell Dave to work carefully until I get back. In hindsight, this was an even dumber decision than I thought. This is what I was told happened to Dave. Dave has been welding for a few hours. Dave's clothes are covered in shavings from the work. Dave does not understand that slag and metal splinters stick to fabric and have to be picked off manually. Dave gets a really good idea. Dave turns his blowtorch off to kill the flame and uses the oxygen as a blow duster to clean the metal off his clothes. Dave feels very proud of himself. Before anyone can tell him not to, Dave turns his torch back on and goes back to welding. The sparks start to fly. Dave, who has thoroughly oxygenated his clothes with his blowtorch, goes up like a fucking Roman candle. I heard the screaming all the way from the break room and I know it's Dave. Sprint back in time to see Dave running for the fire extinguisher while on fire. He doesn't make it that far. Dave has a lighter in his shirt pocket. Dave did not listen to me when I told him to take it out. Lighter explodes. Dave's clothes explode. Dave explodes. I grab the fire extinguisher and blast what is left of Dave with it. There isn't much. Most of his lower face is crispy. Skin is hanging off of his chest in big strips. Blisters. So many blisters. Dave is moaning. The inside of his mouth is totally raw. Dave inhaled the flames. He's coughing out all this fluid and pieces of his tongue. The caddy lock on his lighter, that little metal strip above the flint, has been propelled with such force that it has embedded itself in his eye. The fluid from it boiled and burned the socket and anything it touched on his face. Dave is gasping for breath. I know Dave is fucked. Dave dies before the ambulance can get there. To be honest, none of us really miss Dave. This happened when I was like 4 and it still gives me chills thinking about it. Camping with Dad in the woods near our house. Live near a huge national park, so we have tons of places to go. Decide we are gonna make a trip of it and hike in a ways. From the time we parked until we stopped for lunch, we didn't hear or see a single soul. We were completely isolated. Stopped to have lunch near an old riverbed. I start to get this weird feeling. I look over to see if Dad feels it too. He looks slightly worried. Something just didn't feel right. It felt like we were being watched. Suddenly on the opposite side of the riverbed a woman appears from the bushes. She's wearing jogging clothing and sneakers. She's smiling really big at us.
Hi.
She calls at us. Dad doesn't answer.
I'm looking for my daughter.
She doesn't say this in a worried way, though. More like a mildly annoyed way.
I've been looking all over for her. Have you seen her?
No, my dad says. She sort of hesitates. Never stops smiling.
Hi, I'm looking for my daughter. She's gotten off somewhere. Can you help me look for her?
What? I'm thoroughly shitting bricks at this point. Dad says no again. More firmly this time. The woman just stands there, smiling at us. Dad says we need to go. We pack up our stuff and the whole time he keeps an eye on her. Sometimes she calls stuff like,
Hi,
and
have you seen my daughter anywhere?
finally packed up and ready to go. Dad checks my pack. Turns to check on her. She's fucking gone. Never heard her leave. We get the hell out of there and back to the car as fast as possible. The thing about it that was so fucked, aside from the whole thing, was that she was wearing sneakers and jogging shorts. We were deep in backcountry. There is absolutely no way she got there in those clothes. She was so totally out of place, and it really fucked with me for a while. I asked my dad about it years later and he won't talk about it.
My dad and I live out in rural West Virginia and there's someone doing really fucked up things to animals in the backwoods. Come from a long line of hicks. Dad is slightly smarter than average, manages to scrape a living together. Mom took baby brother and left years ago, so it's just us. 2 dudes living out in a trailer literally in the middle of nowhere. Take pickup out to town once a month for groceries paid for with disability, both of us. My checks mostly go to internet and other shit. Been living out here for about 5 years. No neighbors. Closest person is over 10 miles away. Dad owns about an acre, the rest is forest with ambiguous ownership. Lots of wildlife since we're so far out. Rarely have trouble with hunters since there's nothing really out here anyway. That's the background. That gives you a sense of how isolated we are out here, which is how we like it. Up until like 3 weeks ago, everything is fine on the farm. No weird noises or monkey creatures or skinwalkers. Just a bunch of dumb-ass raccoons and deer and some scrawny coyotes. Then, out of nowhere, fucked up carcasses start appearing on or near our property. First one was a blackbird. Wings are broken and literally tied behind its back like shoelaces. Neck snapped. Think it's some kind of weird natural phenomenon and huck it back into the trees. 2 days later, find a baby raccoon with its eyes taken out and put into the back of its skull. 2 sockets smashed into its head to make room for the eyes. No animal did this. Go get Dad, he doesn't really care. Decide to forget about it. Next day, there's another baby raccoon. Jaw is broken, inside its mouth is bird's head. Suffocated to death. Now I'm really starting to freak out. Someone really fucked up is out here killing shit. Start patrolling the property with my rifle at night, never see a single fucking thing. Bodies keep showing up. It's always nasty shit like that. Pieces of animals stuck into or shoved inside others. Animals with organs moved around into different spots. Bones replaced with twigs. This has been going on, like I said, for weeks now. This morning there was a lot of fog. Really freaked out as I walk along edge of property. See a shape in the distance. It's a fucking deer. It's basically a skeleton with fur. This thing obviously died of starvation. Looking at its head, it's obvious why. Another deer's antlers have been tied to this deer's ones with some kind of twine. Both probably died around the same time, but all that's left of one is the head. Basically a skeleton deer carcass with another deer's decapitated head stuck to it. I'm going to the police as soon as I finish writing this. I don't know what kind of sick fuck does this, but I don't want them roaming around out here. What scares me most is that whatever did it managed to tie two fully grown male deer together without leaving a fucking scratch on it.
My grandpa would never go in his attic. Would never tell us why. Me and siblings grew up not really questioning it. All of us just knew that Pop wouldn't go in the attic. Whenever he needed something from it, we'd go get it for him. Totally normal attic. Never got any spooky vibes from it. Years later, Grandpa dies. Died peacefully in his sleep. I go stay with my grandma to keep her company. One night we're up late talking about old memories. I bring up the attic in a story. Grandma gets really quiet. Asks if anyone ever talked to me about why he wouldn't go up there. Nope.jpg. She tells me that when they first moved into the house, Pop couldn't sleep. He said something about the house just didn't feel right. He paced all night like he was crazy. Went over every inch of the house with a fine-toothed comb. Grandma is really worried but doesn't say anything. One night he goes up into the attic. She hears him start screaming. She sprints up to the attic and finds him curled up in a ball. He's sobbing. Grandma asks him what happened. He looks up at her and tells her he figured it out. He points to where the eaves of the roof narrow down toward the far end. She looks, there's nothing there. Then she looks closer and sees something she can't really describe or explain. All she could compare it to was origami. It was like space was folded up on itself. The angles were all wrong. She said when she looked at it she could feel herself going crazy, like something inside her was melting. She drags Pop down the stairs and puts him to bed. He sleeps for 2 days. When he wakes up, he says he'll never go into the attic again as long as he lives. Never says another word about it. Ignores Grandma when she brings it up. Grandma goes quiet and I don't say anything. We moved on to other stuff and she hasn't brought it up again since. Turns out most of my family knows that part of the attic has always been blocked with a huge old bureau. Now I know why.
Be me. 22 and in college. Doing a lot of drinking, so I spend most of my free time in bars. One night I'm alone, friends have all left. Depressed about finals, so I stay and keep drinking the pain away. Great idea, I know. Gets to be really late, it's like me and 2 other people in the entire place. It's Wednesday, so not a lot going on anywhere, I guess. Talking to the bartender about whatever. Someone sits right next to me. Kinda try to ignore it, but whoever it is right next to me, like I can practically feel them pressing up against me. Very drunk and pissed, so I make a point to scoot away. Shoot a nasty glance at whoever it is. It's some older guys with a patchy beard and dark glasses. Almost like they're tinted but not enough to be sunglasses. What a fag, I think. Keep talking to bartender. In the middle of a sentence the guy leans over and says to me, "You're warm." I give him a "what the fuck is wrong with you" glance. He smiles this big grin at me. Tells me his name is John. Holds out his hand for me to shake. Bartender looks as weirded out as I do. Shake the guy's hand just to get him to go away. His hand is ice fucking cold. Not like "oh I'm cold," but like he just came out of a walk-in freezer. It's the middle of May. Guy asks what I'm drinking. Vodka Coke, I say, and then go back to my conversation, thinking he has to have gotten the point. Nope. Asks me how my drink tastes. But he asks it really weird. Not like "oh how is it," but like he wants me to describe the taste. Good. I say, just like that. John laughs and orders the same. Says, well, if you like it so much I'll have to try it. Bartender makes it for him. Both of us are now watching this dude. Guy picks up the glass in a really weird way. Puts his palms flat on either side and lifts it without using any of his fingers. He drinks the entire thing in one go. Holy shit, I think, this guy is a piece of work. Puts the glass down and smiles at me. Asks for another. Bartender is a little weirded out but gives it to him. This time he just leaves it there and focuses back on me. What are you, young man? He asks. Yeah. Are you in education? Oh. Yeah. He nods like this is some huge accomplishment. Since apparently he's here to stay, I just say fuck it and ask him what he does. He gives me this really wide smile. His teeth are perfect, which for some reason is weird to me. Oh, I'm in education as well. I'm learning all the time. He laughs like this is a big joke to him or something. Just sit there awkwardly. Like a teacher, or? John winks at the bartender for some reason but doesn't say anything. Bartender gives me a look and goes to do something else. Thanks, asshole, I think. Now I'm alone with weirdo. John has a weird way of looking at me, like he's sizing me up and studying me at the same time. Yeah, I'm not gay or whatever, I say to make sure he's not trying to hit on me. He scoots closer to me. I scoot away. He comes closer. Okay, what the fuck, now I'm starting to get pissed again. Man, back off. I tell him. John ignores me, asks me another question. What do you think of strangers? I'm noticing now that everything he says with a smile, like a car salesman. Or someone trying really hard to be less fucking weird than they are. I tell him I like it when they leave me alone. He just smiles. Everyone is a stranger to someone else, you know. Until they get to know each other. Thanks for the fucking life advice. I finish my drink and get up, fuck this. Decide I'll just go get a bottle of something at a store and get drunker at home. John keeps smiling up at me. Put my money on the counter. John watches me do this. He stands and reaches into his pockets. Pulls out a fucking massive wad of cash. Like the kind a mobster would have or something. What the fuck? He puts 100 on the counter, watching me like he's expecting me to tell him if it's the right amount. Turn around and walk out without saying anything. About 50 feet from my car when I notice there's another set of footsteps crunching behind me. Oh fuck this. Get to my car and unlock it. Get inside, shut door, lock it right away. Not even fully closed when John comes up to the window. Bends down so he can see inside. His face is right up to the glass. Fuck off, man, I say. He just smiles at me. Fuck off, man, he repeats it exactly the same. Officially weirded out, I'm considering calling the cops or something. He keeps smiling in at me and that's when I notice that even though he's smiling his eyes aren't. They're cold and suddenly I feel very uncomfortable. Back off, man, or you're gonna get hit, I tell him. What was the drink you gave me? He asks. I'd like to get it again someday. Gave him. What? Tell him it's vodka and coke. He nods and does this weird tapping thing on the glass with one finger. Thank you. His finger is pressed against the glass and that's when I notice that this motherfucker has no fingerprints. Not only that, but he's close enough that he should be leaving breath fog on the glass. He's not. This fucker isn't breathing. His finger leaves no trace of anything on the glass. I am officially done with this shit. Start the car and put it in reverse. I very much liked your jokes. Start backing up very slowly but he just stays put. Figure if I run over his feet it's his own problem for not getting out of my way. I'm glad you were here to teach them to me. Somehow I don't run him over and I manage to get far enough away to turn and leave. Watch him in my mirror as I go. He just stands there and watches. Went back to that bar a few weeks later. Asked the bartender about John. Apparently after I left, John came back in and sat at the bar until closing. He didn't order anything else to drink. He didn't drink the vodka he'd already ordered. He just held it in his palms and watched the bartender. Bartender didn't say anything to him the entire time until telling the guy he has to leave. John doesn't put up a fuss, just gets up and leaves. Bartender locks up and is about to leave when John appears again right next to the window and taps on the glass. Bartender asks if he needs him to call a taxi. John doesn't say yes or no, he just smiles. And thanks the bartender for teaching him so much. Offers his hand. Bartender shakes it. Drives off like a bat out of hell. I don't know if you noticed, Anon, but I did. Noticed what? I ask. When he drank. He didn't swallow. Not once. It just went right down into him. That motherfucker was in there for 4 hours and not once did he cough, blink, adjust himself, or do anything really other than sit and smile. Never see John again. Bartender and I joked that John was an alien who was learning human customs and how to blend in. What better place to do it than a bar? Maybe not the best ending or whatever, but something was really fucking wrong about John, and I really hope I never see him again. Flip through the alien binder and here's a quick one I can do a bit easier. 2007. When I was little I had an imaginary friend. His name was Binky and I used to play with him every night for about a year. I'd sit on my bed and look out the window for Binky. He always came after sunset. I'd wait until I could see the North Star and then I'd look for him until he popped up. He'd usually appear right next to the North Star, but he liked to move around. He looked like a star but he wasn't. He wasn't exactly circular and he was a little more purple than the other stars. I'd wait until I saw him, and then I'd start talking. Binky would respond by flashing, once for yes and twice for no, and I remember testing this to make sure it was really happening. He'd also get brighter in answer to my questions and stuff. We talked like this every night for about a year. After that I met my real-life best friend and I sort of forgot about him. Years later I mentioned him to my sister and she got really pale. Turns out she remembers Binky, but not the same way. She remembers me inventing Binky and talking to him at night, but he wasn't a star. He was a man made of leather that would come to my window at night and take me somewhere. That's exactly how she described him, like he was made of tanned leather. His skin was very thick and looked like it was sort of pieced together in a suit. Like he was wearing a leather suit and underneath was something else. He'd come to my window, on the first floor, and I'd go with him. Sister was too scared to see where we went. She told my parents but they never saw anything and the dogs never barked when she saw us leaving. Dogs barked at everything. I have no idea what to make of this. Probably just a weird childhood memory or something.